The great ship Nevera Prime drifted silently through the empty void of space, its once gleaming hull now scarred and dull from years of travel. Inside, Captain Zeth stood before the main viewing screen, his four eyes blinking tiredly as he studied the small blue-green planet that appeared in their path. "How long has it been now, Mira?" he asked, not turning to look at his second-in-command. 17 cycles since our banishment, Captain," Mira replied, her voice soft but steady. "Almost 2 decades in Earth time." Zeth nodded slowly. The Neveran people had been wandering for so long that some of the younger ones barely remembered their home world. 17 cycles of rejection, of being turned away from every inhabited planet they approached, of watching their supplies dwindle and their people grow weaker, all because they had dared to question the Galactic Confederation's policies. "And what do we know of this planet?" he asked. Mira consulted her datapad. "They call it Earth. The dominant species are humans. They've achieved space travel, but only within their own solar system. The Confederation made first contact with them just 5 cycles ago, but has kept interaction minimal. They're considered primitive by Confederation standards." Zeth gave a bitter laugh. "Primitive, perhaps, but we've tried all the advanced worlds already." Behind them, the ship's engineer Drav entered the bridge, his normally blue skin pale with exhaustion. "Captain, I must report that life support systems on ships 3 and 7 are failing. We have temporarily moved those families to other vessels, but our resources are stretched to breaking point." The news was not unexpected, but it still hit Zeth like a physical blow. Their fleet of 12 ships carried the last 30,000 Neverans in existence. Once they had been respected scientists, artists, and philosophers. Now they were refugees, clinging to survival on aging ships that were never meant for such long journeys. "We have no choice then," Zeth said finally. "We must approach Earth, prepare a transmission in their primary languages." "Captain," protested Krell, the security chief. "These humans are barely spacefaring. What help could they possibly offer? And if the Confederation discovers we've contacted them?" "The Confederation made their position clear when they banished our entire species," Zeth replied firmly. "As for what help humans can offer, perhaps none. But we've tried every other option. Our children are going hungry, Krell. Our ships are failing. We either take this chance or we drift until we die." No one on the bridge could argue with that harsh truth. 17 cycles of rejection had taught them all that survival sometimes required desperate measures. "Prepare a diplomatic team," Zeth ordered. "Mira, you'll lead it. Include our medical chief and cultural experts. We need to make the humans understand we come in peace. And if they reject us too?" Mira asked quietly. Zeth turned back to the viewing screen where Earth continued to grow larger. A beautiful blue world wrapped in swirling white clouds. Unknown, potentially hostile, their last hope. "Then we'll have our answer," he said softly. On Earth, at the United Space Command headquarters in Geneva, alarms began to sound. "Director Chen, we're detecting multiple large objects entering the outer solar system," called out Lieutenant Rossi from her monitoring station.
"They appear to be ships, sir."
"Not one of ours." Director Wei Chen moved quickly to Rossi's station, studying the readings with a practiced eye. Since Earth's first contact with alien life 5 years ago, the USC had been on constant alert for any sign of extraterrestrial approach. The Galactic Confederation had established limited diplomatic relations with Earth, but had been clear that humans were nowhere near ready for full membership in the galactic community. "Have they responded to hails?" Chen asked. "No, sir, but they're not accelerating either. Current trajectory and speed would bring them to Earth orbit in approximately 3 days." Chen frowned. "Alert the Secretary General. I want our lunar defense platforms on standby, but no aggressive posturing. And get me the Confederation Embassy." Within an hour, Chen found himself in a secure video conference with Earth's leadership and Ambassador Trell, the Confederation representative to Earth. "These ships are not Confederation vessels," Ambassador Trell stated, his translucent skin shimmering with what humans had learned to recognize as agitation. "Based on your sensor data, I believe they may be Neveran ships." "Neveran?" asked Secretary General Okafor. "We're not familiar with this species." Trell's mouth tentacles twisted in what might have been disgust. "The Neverans were banished from the Confederation nearly 20 of your years ago. They questioned the authority of the High Council and promoted dangerous ideas. They are not to be trusted." Chen exchanged glances with Okafor. "In their limited dealings with the Confederation, Both had privately questioned the seemingly absolute authority it wielded over hundreds of species. What exactly was their crime, Ambassador? Asked Chen. They proposed resource redistribution that would have undermined the established order, Trell replied vaguely. They were given a choice: accept the Council's wisdom or leave Confederation space. They chose exile, and now they're approaching Earth, Okafor noted. What do you advise? Turn them away, Trell said immediately. If Earth wishes to continue positive relations with the Confederation, you must not assist these criminals. After the ambassador disconnected, Okafor turned to her advisors. Opinions? Dr. Elena Reyes, Earth's leading xenobiologist, spoke up first. Madam Secretary, something doesn't add up. The Neverends were clearly an advanced civilization if they were part of the Confederation. For them to risk approaching us, a primitive world by their standards, suggests they must be truly desperate. Or dangerous, countered General Wallace. For all we know, they could be planning to conquer Earth since they couldn't get their way with the Confederation. With 12 ships? Chen asked skeptically. If they wanted to attack, why announce their presence days in advance? No, this looks like a diplomatic approach. I agree, said Reyes. I think we should at least hear what they have to say. Okafor nodded slowly. Director Chen, prepare a response. Tell these Neverends we're willing to establish communication, but keep our defenses ready just in case. 3 days later, a small shuttle departed from the Neverend flagship and began its descent toward Earth. Inside, Mira reviewed their situation one final time with her team. Remember, we need their help, but we must maintain our dignity, she told the 5 other Neverends accompanying her. These humans have had limited contact with the Confederation. They may fear us or misunderstand our intentions. Talak, the medical chief, looked out the viewport as Earth's atmosphere began to envelop their craft. It's beautiful, she said softly. Reminds me of home before the droughts came. Don't get attached, warned Voss, the security officer. They'll likely turn us away like all the others, especially once the Confederation pressures them. Mira shook her head. We don't know that. From what little we've intercepted of their communications, humans seem different, more independent-minded, which is why the Confederation has kept them at arm's length, added Linar, their cultural expert. They see the same questioning spirit in humans that they punished in us. The shuttle shuddered slightly as it entered the lower atmosphere. On the communication panel, a human voice spoke in carefully pronounced Neveran. Neveran shuttle, this is Earth Space Control. You are cleared to land at the Geneva International Facility. Please follow the guidance beacon. Mira took a deep breath. Let's hope that independence works in our favor. For all our sakes. The shuttle broke through the cloud layer, revealing the sparkling expanse of a large lake surrounded by mountains and the sprawling buildings of a city. As they descended toward a large, flat area where several humans waited, Mira felt both hope and fear rise within her. 17 cycles of rejection had brought them here, to this primitive but beautiful world. To people who might help, or who might deliver the final blow to the Neverend people's hope for survival. We're landing, announced the pilot. Mira straightened her travel-worn diplomatic robes. Then let's meet our potential saviors. The shuttle touched down gently on Earth, the first Neverend vessel to make contact with humanity. As the door opened and sunlight streamed in, Mira stepped forward into the unknown, carrying the future of her entire species with her. Dr. Elena Reyes stood perfectly still as the alien shuttle door opened. Despite years of studying xenobiology, nothing had prepared her for this moment. Face-to-face contact with a species no human had ever met before. Behind her, the welcome committee of scientists, diplomats, and military personnel waited with similar tension. The first Neverend to emerge was tall and slender, with blue-tinted skin that seemed to shimmer in the sunlight. 4 large eyes blinked rapidly, adjusting to Earth's brightness. The alien had no hair, but delicate ridge-like patterns decorated its elongated skull. Its 4-fingered hands were held open in what Elena hoped was a universal gesture of peace. Welcome to Earth, Elena said, stepping forward and activating her translation device. I am Dr. Elena Reyes, lead representative for this meeting. The Neverend bowed slightly. I am Mira, second commander of the Neverend fleet and diplomatic lead. We thank you for allowing us to land. 5 more Neverends emerged from the shuttle, each with subtle differences in their ridge patterns and skin tones. They all wore simple, practical clothing that showed signs of long wear. "These are my colleagues," Mira continued. "Telak, our medical chief. Leaner, our cultural expert. Voss, security. And Jala and Kren, our science officers." Elena introduced her own team, then gestured toward the large building nearby. "We've prepared a meeting space where we can talk more comfortably. Our atmosphere and gravity readings indicate they should be acceptable to your physiology. But please tell us if you experience any discomfort." As they walked, Elena noticed how the Neverans moved with a strange mixture of dignity and caution. They seemed simultaneously regal and afraid, like royalty who had fallen on hard times. Inside the conference room, the human and Neveran delegations sat facing each other. Director Chen opened the proceedings. "We understand you've traveled a great distance to reach Earth," he said. "We're curious about your purpose here." Mira's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a gesture the humans would later learn indicated deep emotion. "Our purpose is survival," she said simply. "The Neveran people need help. We have been traveling for 17 cycles, nearly 20 Earth years since our banishment from the Galactic Confederation. We have approached 37 inhabited worlds during that time. All have turned us away, fearing Confederation sanctions. What led to your banishment?" asked Secretary General Okafor directly. Telak, the medical officer, made a soft clicking sound that the translation device didn't interpret. Mira glanced at her colleague before answering. "We questioned the Confederation's resource allocation policies," she explained. "Our homeworld was suffering from environmental degradation caused by Confederation mining operations. When we presented evidence and requested assistance, we were labeled as dissidents. When we refused to withdraw our claims, our entire species, all 40,000 of us then, was banished." 40,000? Elena couldn't hide her shock. "Your entire species was exiled for raising environmental concerns?" "The Confederation does not tolerate questioning of its authority," Voss said grimly, "especially from a relatively small member species like ours." Director Chen leaned forward. "And now you've come to Earth. What exactly are you hoping for from us?" "Asylum," Mira said. "A place where some of our people can settle. We are down to 30,000 now. Our ships were never designed for long-term habitation. Systems are failing. Our children have never known a sky over their heads." The humans exchanged glances. Everyone in the room knew that Earth had only recently gained awareness of the wider galactic community. Helping these refugees could have serious implications. "We've already received a communication from the Confederation ambassador," Okafor said carefully. "They advise us not to assist you." "Of course they would." Linar, the cultural expert, spoke for the first time. "They don't wish their version of our story to be questioned." "Which brings up an important point," said Elena. "We only have your word against theirs." "How can we verify your account?" Mira reached into a pouch at her side and placed a small device on the table. "This contains our historical records, scientific data about our homeworld's environmental collapse, and the full transcript of our appeal to the Confederation Council. We offer it freely for your examination." "We'll need time to review this information," Chen said, "and to discuss the situation among our own leadership." "We understand," Mira replied. "But I must emphasize that our situation is becoming critical. 3 of our ships have life support systems that are barely functioning. We have children who are ill from long-term exposure to recycled air and synthetic nutrition." Elena studied the aliens carefully. Their clothing, while clean, showed signs of multiple repairs. The skin around Telak's eyes had a grayish tinge that suggested exhaustion or illness. These were not conquerors or criminals. They were refugees in the truest sense. "Would you be willing to allow a small delegation from Earth to visit your ships?" Elena asked suddenly. "To verify your claims about their condition and to better understand your needs?" The Neverans looked surprised at the request. After a brief discussion in their own language, Mira nodded. "We would welcome such a visit," she said. "When would you like to come?" "Tomorrow," Elena replied, ignoring the startled looks from her colleagues. "If your situation is as urgent as you say, we shouldn't waste time." The next day, Elena found herself aboard a human shuttle heading toward the Neveran fleet in Earth orbit. Accompanying her were 2 engineers, a medical doctor, and a security team led by Captain Miguel Santos. "You seem remarkably calm about flying into an alien fleet," Santos commented as they approached the largest Neveran ship. Elena smiled. "I've spent my career preparing to understand alien life. I never really expected the opportunity to come during my lifetime. Well, I'm prepared for anything, Santos said, patting his sidearm. Just because they look desperate doesn't mean they aren't dangerous. Their shuttle docked with the Neverin flagship with surprising ease, suggesting the aliens had experience accommodating various spacecraft designs. Mira greeted them at the airlock along with Captain Zeth, who Elena learned was the overall leader of the Neverin fleet. "Welcome aboard the Nevora Prime," Zeth said formally. "We are honored by your trust in coming here." Elena was immediately struck by the conditions inside the ship. The lighting was dim, clearly set to minimal power usage. The air had a slightly stale quality despite being breathable. Most striking was the number of Neverins visible in the corridors, far more than would be typical for a vessel of this size. "We've had to consolidate our people," Mira explained, noticing Elena's observation. "Two of our smaller ships can no longer maintain proper life support." Over the next 6 hours, the human delegation toured the Neverin flagship and 2 other vessels. What they found matched exactly what the Neverins had claimed: a civilization on the brink of collapse. Engineering spaces jury-rigged with makeshift repairs, hydroponic gardens struggling to produce enough food, medical facilities overwhelmed with patients suffering from conditions related to long-term space habitation. Most affecting were the children. Some had been born on the ships and had never known any other home. They stared at the human visitors with a mixture of curiosity and wary hope. In a nursery area, Elena knelt beside a small Neverin child who appeared to be drawing on a reused piece of material. "What's your name?" she asked gently. "Tiri," the child replied through the translator. "Are you from the blue planet?" "Yes, I am. It's called Earth. Is it nice there? Does it have open spaces?" The child's 4 eyes blinked rapidly. "Very nice," Elena said, feeling her throat tighten. "With many open spaces. Oceans and mountains and forests." "What's a forest?" The simple question hit Elena harder than any of the technical briefings or diplomatic discussions. This child didn't know what a forest was, had never felt wind or rain, had never walked on solid ground. When the human delegation returned to Earth, they brought with them extensive documentation of the Neverins' condition, along with samples of their technology and cultural artifacts freely given by their hosts. They're exactly who they claim to be. Elena reported to the emergency session of the United Nations Security Council. A displaced people on the verge of extinction. Their ships cannot sustain them much longer. And the Confederation's claims that they're dangerous dissidents? Asked the representative from Nigeria. Based on the evidence we've reviewed, including their historical records, the Neverans' only crime was advocating for environmental protection of their home world, replied Dr. Hamid, who had led the team analyzing the Neverans' data device. Their scientific evidence of environmental damage caused by Confederation mining was solid. Their approach to the Council appears to have been respectful and through proper channels. Nevertheless, said the representative from India, helping them would put Earth at odds with the Galactic Confederation, our only contact with the wider universe. Is that a risk we're prepared to take? The room fell silent as the implications settled over everyone present. Earth was being asked to choose between doing what appeared to be right and maintaining good relations with a powerful interstellar authority. As the debate continued, Elena's mind kept returning to the child who didn't know what a forest was, to the families crowded into failing spaceships, to a people who had maintained their dignity and culture through almost 2 decades of rejection. "Perhaps," she said finally. 3 days after the human delegation's visit to the Neverin ships, Earth's leaders remained deadlocked. Reports from the visit had been made public, along with carefully selected information about the Neverans' history and culture. People around the world were divided, some seeing a humanitarian opportunity, others fearing alien infiltration or Confederation retaliation. In her temporary office at the United Nations, Elena Reyes reviewed the latest medical reports from the Neverin fleet with growing concern. Telek, the Neverin medical chief, had sent an urgent update overnight. "Dr. Chen," Elena called to her colleague who was analyzing Neverin technology samples across the room. "Look at these readings from their Ship 7. Dr. Wei Chen leaned over her screen and frowned. "Atmospheric toxicity rising. Life support failing completely? Yes, they've evacuated most people to other ships, but they're already overcrowded. And look at these medical scans. Elena swiped to another screen showing biological data. 23 children showing advanced symptoms of respiratory distress. They need to get off those ships, Chen said grimly. Whatever Earth decides, it needs to happen soon. The intercom on Elena's desk buzzed. Dr. Reyes, the Secretary General, requests your presence in the council chamber immediately. When Elena arrived, she found not just the Security Council members but also Ambassador Trell from the Confederation. The ambassador's translucent skin was pulsing with color patterns that suggested agitation. Dr. Reyes, Secretary General Okafor nodded in greeting. The ambassador has brought new information regarding the Neverans. We thought you should hear it directly. Trell's mouth tentacles writhed as the translation device interpreted his words. The Confederation High Council wishes to inform Earth that providing any assistance to the Neveran exiles would constitute interference in Confederation internal justice matters. Such action would result in the immediate suspension of all technological exchange programs and diplomatic relations. That sounds like a threat, Ambassador, Elena said calmly. Merely a statement of consequences, Trell replied. The Neverans were judged and sentenced by the proper authorities. They rejected the opportunity to accept Confederation wisdom and chose their path of exile. We've reviewed their evidence of environmental damage to their home world, said the representative from Brazil. Their scientific data appears sound. Was this considered during their judgment? Trell's skin flickered with rapid color changes. The issue was not the data. The issue was their challenge to established authority. The Confederation maintains order across hundreds of worlds and species. This cannot function if member species question directives from the High Council. So their crime was essentially asking too many questions. Elena asked. Their crime was sedition, Trell snapped. And Earth would do well to learn from their example rather than harbor criminals. After Trell departed, the council chamber erupted in discussion. Elena listened as arguments flew back and forth. Humanitarian concerns versus practical politics, moral imperatives versus self-preservation. Finally, Okafor raised her hand for silence. We've been debating for days. Perhaps it's time we listened to someone who has spent more time with the Neverans than anyone else. Dr. Reyes, what is your assessment? Elena took a deep breath. Based on all available evidence, the Neverans appear to be exactly what they claim. Refugees seeking asylum after being unjustly punished for advocating for their planet's environmental health. Their medical situation is critical. Their ships are failing. Without help, many will die in the coming week. And the Confederation's threats? Asked the French representative. Are real and should be considered, Elena acknowledged. But I would ask this body to consider a question. If Earth's first significant action on the galactic stage is to turn away refugees who did nothing wrong except stand up for their rights, what does that say about us as a species? What precedent does that set for our future in the galaxy? The room fell silent. Then the representative from Kenya spoke up. My country knows something about standing up to powerful outside forces. Sometimes the right choice is not the easy choice. The right choice is protecting Earth's interests, countered the representative from Russia. We cannot risk our future for these aliens. As the debate continued, Elena's tablet chimed with an urgent message from the monitoring team. She read it quickly, her face paling. Madam Secretary, she interrupted. I've just received word that life support has completely failed on another Neveran ship. They're reporting multiple medical emergencies, including several children in critical condition. Okafor looked around the chamber. It seems the time for debate has ended. We must make a decision now. On the Neveran flagship, Captain Zeth received the transmission from Earth, with all his senior officers gathered around. As he listened, his four eyes blinked rapidly in sequence, the Neveran expression of intense emotion. They're allowing us to land? Mira asked in disbelief when the transmission ended. Not just land, Zeth said, his voice unsteady. They're offering permanent settlement rights for our people. A region called Antarctica has been designated for our initial habitation. They're sending medical teams to our ships immediately to treat the most serious cases. Antarctica? Asked Drav, the engineer. Isn't that their coldest continent? Yes, said Linar, the cultural expert. But they've explained it's ideal for us. It's politically neutral territory under international management. Its isolation will allow us privacy and protection as we adjust. And most importantly, its climate is surprisingly similar to our homeworld before the environmental changes. The Confederation will retaliate against Earth. Voss warned. They're risking their future for us. They know, Zeth said quietly. That was clear in their communication. They've made their choice anyway. For a moment, no one spoke. After 17 cycles of rejection, the reality of acceptance was almost too much to comprehend. Prepare our people, Zeth ordered finally. Priority evacuation for the medical cases and families with children. And send a message to Earth. Tell them the Neveran people will remember this day for all generations to come. The first Neveran refugees began landing on Earth 3 days later. A temporary settlement had been hastily constructed on the Antarctic Peninsula, the most hospitable region of the continent. International medical teams worked alongside Neveran healers to treat those suffering from long-term space habitation effects. Elena was there for the arrival of the first transport, which carried primarily children and their caretakers. She watched as young Neverans, some who had never known any world but the inside of a spaceship, stepped cautiously onto Earth soil, their 4 eyes wide with wonder as they looked up at the open sky. She spotted Tiri, the child she had met on the ship, standing with a group near the edge of the landing area, staring at the distant mountains. Hello, Tiri, she said, approaching slowly. The child turned. Dr. Elena. Is this really Earth? Is it really ours now too? Yes, this is Earth, and yes, you're welcome to call it home now. Tiri pointed to the horizon. Are those mountains? Yes, those are mountains. And will you show me a forest one day? Elena smiled. I promise. Just then, a commotion near the main landing area drew her attention. A group of diplomatic vehicles had arrived, and from one emerged Ambassador Trell, accompanied by several Confederation officials. Secretary General Okafor stepped forward to meet them. Elena moved closer. Concerned about the confrontation, the Confederation High Council has sent me to deliver its final warning, Trell was saying, his skin pulsing dark colors. Remove the Neverans from your planet immediately or face the consequences. Okafor stood tall, unflinching. Ambassador, Earth has made its decision. These people have committed no crime except advocating for justice. We have reviewed all evidence and granted them asylum under our laws. Then you leave the Confederation no choice, Trell replied coldly. All diplomatic relations with Earth are hereby suspended. All technology exchange programs terminated. Earth is now classified as a non-cooperative world. Without waiting for a response, Trell turned and walked back to his vehicle. Within minutes, the Confederation delegation had departed. What will happen now? Elena asked as she joined Okafor. The Secretary General watched the Confederation ships lifting off. Now we face the consequences of doing the right thing. She turned to look at the Neveran children exploring their new home. And we help our new friends build a life here. News of the Confederation's break with Earth spread quickly. In some quarters, there was fear and anger directed at both the government and the Neveran refugees. Economic experts predicted hardship without Confederation technology. Security analysts warned of possible military action, but there was also a groundswell of support. Volunteer organizations formed to help the Neverans adjust to life on Earth. Universities offered to work with Neveran scientists to learn from each other. Children in schools around the world sent messages of welcome to Neveran children. 6 weeks after the first landing, Elena visited the Antarctic settlement again. Already it had transformed from a hasty emergency facility to the beginnings of a permanent community. Neveran architecture, graceful and practical, had begun to reshape the landscape. Hybrid Earth Neveranti. 6 months after the first Neverans landed on Earth, the Antarctic settlement had grown into a true community. Dome-like structures with elegant spires housed most of the 30,000 refugees. Between them ran covered walkways that protected against the harsh weather. At the center stood the largest building, a combined research center, school, and cultural hub. Inside this central facility, Elena Reyes now had a permanent office. After the initial crisis passed, she had accepted a position as Earth's primary liaison to the Neveran people. Today she was meeting with Mira, who had taken on a similar role representing her people. The hydroponics facilities are exceeding expectations, Mira reported, displaying diagrams on the wall screen. By combining our atmospheric regulation technology with Earth agricultural science, we're producing enough food for our entire population plus a surplus. That's remarkable, Elena said. The UN Agricultural Committee will be very interested in these results. Food security is a major concern in many regions. We would be happy to share our methods, Mira replied. It's the least we can do after all Earth has done for us. Their meeting was interrupted by the arrival of Thierry, now serving as a young assistant in the liaison office. She had adapted quickly to Earth life and was learning English alongside her duties. "Dr. Elena, Chief Mira," she said excitedly. "The engineering team wants you both to come to Lab 3 right away. They say it's important." In Lab 3, they found a mixed team of human and Neveran scientists gathered around what looked like a small power generator. Dr. Wei Chen, now head of the Joint Technology Exchange Program, waved them over. "We did it," he announced proudly. "The fusion catalyst works. You're certain?" Mira asked, her four eyes blinking rapidly. 100%, confirmed Drav, the Neveran engineer. "We've run 20 test cycles. The efficiency rate is holding at 98.7%, far beyond anything either of our peoples has achieved before." Elena looked at the small device in amazement. "So this could revolutionize Earth's energy production," Chen finished. "Clean, nearly limitless power using materials that are abundant on this planet. No radiation, no toxic waste. The design combines principles from both our technologies," Drav explained. "We had the theoretical framework for the catalyst but lacked certain materials. Earth has the materials but was missing key theoretical insights. Together, we solved what neither could alone," Chen added. As news of the breakthrough spread, it marked a turning point in human-Neveran relations. What had begun as a humanitarian gesture, Earth offering asylum to refugees, was evolving into a mutually beneficial partnership. The fusion catalyst was just the first of many joint innovations. Over the next 2 years, human-Neveran collaborations yielded advances in medicine, materials science, and environmental remediation. Neveran atmospheric purification techniques developed during their long space journey helped address pollution in Earth's most affected cities. Human adaptive architecture concepts enabled Neveran settlements to expand beyond Antarctica to other suitable regions, but not all viewed these developments positively. 3 years after the Neverans' arrival, Elena sat in Secretary General Okafor's office in New York, reviewing reports of Confederation activity near Earth. "Their blockade now includes 17 ships," Elena said, pointing to the orbital tracking display. "They're positioning themselves to intercept any vessel attempting to leave our solar system." Okafor sighed. "As if anyone on Earth had that capability yet. This is pure intimidation." "Effective intimidation," Elena noted. "The Chinese-European Mars mission has been postponed indefinitely. No one wants to risk provoking the Confederation. And what do our Neveran friends think? They feel responsible for our situation. Captain Zeth has offered 3 times to leave Earth if it would restore our standing with the Confederation." Okafor shook her head firmly. "That's not an option. We made our choice and it was the right one. The question is, where do we go from here?" The answer came from an unexpected direction. 1 month later, an unidentified ship appeared at the edge of the solar system. It carefully avoided the Confederation blockade, using an unusual propulsion method that confused tracking systems. By the time the Confederation detected it, the ship had already entered Earth orbit. Elena was summoned urgently to the United Space Command headquarters. When she arrived, she found Director Chen, now promoted to Admiral, reviewing sensor data with a team of analysts. "What do we know?" she asked. "Not Confederation design," Chen replied. "Smaller than the Neveran ships? It's been broadcasting a repeating message in multiple frequencies, including one that matches Neveran communication protocols. Have you informed the Neveran leadership? They're on their way. But I wanted you here when we—" He was interrupted as the communication officer called out, "Sir, we're receiving a clear transmission from the vessel. They're requesting permission to send a shuttle to the Neveran settlement." "Put it through," Chen ordered. A voice came through the speakers, speaking in accented but clear English. "Greetings, Earth authorities. This is Captain Lavina of the Sentinel ship Horizon. We request permission to land and speak with the Neveran refugees and Earth leadership regarding matters of mutual interest." Elena and Chen exchanged surprised looks. "Sentinel?" Chen asked. "Who are they?" Before anyone could answer, Captain Zeth and Mira hurried into the command center, their expressions showing a mixture of shock and hope. "The Sentinels," Zeth breathed. "I never thought, after all this time." "You know them?" Elena asked. "They're a spacefaring species from the outer reaches," Mira explained quickly. They avoid Confederation space and rarely interact with member worlds. They're known for their independence and their tendency to help other species who clash with the Confederation. After careful security protocols were established, the Sentinel ship was permitted to send a small shuttle to Antarctica. Captain Lavina turned out to be a tall, willowy being with grayish-silver skin and features that seemed almost feline. She was accompanied by 2 others of her species and, surprisingly, a member of a different alien race, one with multifaceted eyes and an exoskeleton that resembled burnished copper. "This is Krex," Lavina introduced the copper-skinned alien. "He is Thalaxian, another species banished by the Confederation. When we learned that Earth had granted asylum to the Neverends, we knew we had to make contact." The meeting that followed revealed a reality that the Confederation had hidden from Earth. The Neverends were not unique. Over the past century, at least 7 species had been banished from Confederation space for various crimes that amounted to challenging Confederation authority. The Sentinels, who had never joined the Confederation, had been quietly monitoring this pattern. "We've provided sanctuary to the Thalaxians," Lavina explained. "The Mora host the Vindari, but our resources are limited. When news reached us that a newly contacted world, Earth, had defied the Confederation to help refugees, we knew something important had changed in the galaxy." "How did you hear about us?" Elena asked. "The Confederation has cut off all official communication." Lavina's mouth curved in what might have been a smile. "The Confederation isn't as unified as it pretends to be. There are those within member worlds who question the High Council's policies. They pass information through unofficial channels. The revelation that Earth was not alone in its defiance of the Confederation changed everything. Over the following weeks, representatives from Earth, the Neverends, and the Sentinel Alliance, as Lavina's coalition called itself, met to discuss possible cooperation. "The Confederation maintains power through isolation," Krex, the Thalaxian, explained during one session. "They convince each species that they are alone in their concerns, that resistance is futile. But if we form our own network," Seth suggested, "we can break that isolation." "Exactly," Lavina agreed. "Earth's defense of the Neverends has created an opportunity. For the first time, someone has publicly challenged the Confederation's authority and refused to back down." Elena looked around the table at the diverse group of beings, human, Neverend, Sentinel, Thalaxian, all united by a common belief in justice and mutual support. "So what are you proposing?" she asked. "An alliance," Lavina said simply. "Not based on dominance like the Confederation, but on mutual respect and aid. The Sentinels can provide faster-than-light technology to Earth. The Thalaxians excel at defensive systems. Combined with Neverend environmental science and Earth's resources and innovation, we could create something new in the galaxy." The proposal was bold, some said recklessly so. Earth would be openly positioning itself against the most powerful known interstellar authority. The Confederation blockade could turn from intimidation to actual aggression. But the potential benefits were equally significant: advanced technology, new allies, and a chance to help shape a more just galactic community. After weeks of global debate, Earth's united government, formed in the wake of the Neverend crisis, voted to accept the Sentinel Alliance proposal. Work began immediately to prepare Earth for a more active role in galactic affairs. The first priority was defense. Using Thalaxian designs and Neverend power systems, Earth began constructing a planetary shield network. Sentinel engineers helped upgrade Earth's existing space vessels with more advanced propulsion. Meanwhile, the Neverends led efforts to establish self-sustainment. The diplomatic vessel from Navora arrived with little fanfare. It landed in Antarctica under cover of darkness, using stealth technology to evade the Confederation blockade. Only a small welcoming committee was present: Captain Zeth, Mira Elena Reyes, and Secretary General Okafor. When the ship's door opened, 2 Neverends emerged, a male and female wearing the formal attire of Neverend government officials. Zeth stepped forward, his 4 eyes blinking rapidly in shock. "Councilmember Velix," he said in disbelief, "and Representative Giral." The male Neverend, Velix, bowed deeply. "Captain Zeth, it has been a long time." 22 cycles, Zeth replied stiffly. "Since you voted to support our banishment." An uncomfortable silence fell. Then Velix straightened, meeting Zeth's gaze directly. "I have come to acknowledge a terrible wrong," he said. and to ask for forgiveness I do not deserve. The conversation moved to a secure meeting room inside the Antarctic Settlement's administrative center. There, Velix and Giral revealed a truth that stunned even the battle-hardened leaders of the Earth Alliance coalition. The environmental crisis on Navora has accelerated, Giral explained, displaying holographic images of their homeworld. Vast areas that had once been verdant plains now appeared barren. The Confederation mining operations expanded after your people left. Without your scientists raising concerns, there was no one to challenge their methods. Our people are suffering, Velix added grimly. Crop failures, water contamination, increasing illness rates. The evidence you presented 22 cycles ago has been proven correct in every detail. And the Confederation, Seth asked, denies any responsibility. They claim it is a natural planetary cycle and offer minimal aid. Certainly not enough to save our world. Elena leaned forward. So after all this time, you've come to tell us you were wrong. Why now? Why risk breaking the Confederation quarantine of Earth? Velix and Giral exchanged glances. Because we need help, Giral admitted. And because something is changing within the Confederation itself. Your defiance, Earth's willingness to stand against the High Council, has created ripples throughout member worlds. Reports of your alliance with the Sentinels and other independent species have spread. Despite Confederation efforts to suppress the information, Velix continued, questions are being asked that haven't been asked in generations. Why is the High Council so afraid of Earth? What really happened to the banished Neverans? Are there others who have been unfairly punished? And you're not just here to share information, Okafor surmised. You want something specific, Velix nodded. Two things. First, we need the environmental restoration technology that Neverans and humans have developed together. Our world is dying and the Confederation either cannot or will not help us save it. And second, Seth asked. We request membership in your alliance, Giral said. Navora wishes to leave the Confederation and join with Earth and the other independent worlds. The request was unprecedented. No world had ever voluntarily left the Confederation in its 1,000-cycle history. The implications were enormous and dangerous. The Confederation would never allow it, Elena said. They would view it as direct rebellion. They would, Velix acknowledged. But they may soon have more rebellions than they can handle. Navora is not alone in its disillusionment. At least 3 other worlds have begun quiet discussions about seeking independence. Over the following days, Earth's leaders consulted with their allies about Navora's request. The Sentinels counseled caution but supported accepting Navora into the alliance. The Thalaxians were more skeptical, remembering their own bitter exile. The Neverans on Earth were deeply divided, some welcoming the possibility of reconciliation with their homeworld, others distrusting those who had once turned against them. Finally, a compromise was reached. Earth would provide environmental technology to Navora as a humanitarian measure, regardless of political alignment. As for alliance membership, Navora would need to demonstrate its commitment by taking concrete steps toward independence from the Confederation Velix. And Giral agreed to these terms and returned to their world with samples of the environmental restoration techniques and a secret communication device to maintain contact with Earth. Everyone understood that their actions had set in motion events that could not be reversed. The quiet Cold War between the Confederation and the Earth Alliance was moving toward a more direct confrontation. 6 months later, that confrontation arrived. The Confederation fleet surrounding Earth suddenly doubled in size. New larger vessels took position at key orbital paths, their weapons systems clearly visible. On Earth, the Alliance leadership gathered for an emergency session. They know about Navora, Captain Lavina of the Sentinels stated flatly. Our intelligence indicates the Confederation detected the environmental technology transfer and traced it back to Earth. Are they preparing to attack? Admiral Chen asked, studying the tactical displays. Not immediately, replied Krex, the Thalaxian military advisor. This is still a show of force designed to intimidate, but it represents a significant escalation. Elena looked at the orbital map with concern. What about Navora? Have they been punished for their contact with us? Confederation security forces have taken control of their planetary government, Lavina reported. Velix, Giral, and 24 other officials have been arrested on charges of sedition. But something unexpected has happened. The Neveran people are resisting. New images appeared on the screens, crowds of Neverans in the streets of their capital city, facing down Confederation security forces. Many carried signs with a symbol that combined Neveran and Earth imagery, a visual representation of solidarity between worlds. Similar demonstrations have broken out on 2 other Confederation worlds, Lavina continued. The High Council is facing the first organized resistance movement in centuries. The Earth Alliance now faced a critical decision: remain defensive and hope the Confederation would back down, or take more active measures to support the growing resistance. After intense debate, a bold plan was approved. Using Sentinel stealth technology and Thalaxian defensive systems, a small fleet of Earth Neveran ships would break through the blockade. Their mission: establish contact with resistance movements on sympathetic worlds and offer membership in the Alliance. Elena found herself assigned as diplomatic lead for the mission, alongside Thierry, now a qualified medical officer, and a mixed crew of humans and aliens. Their ship, the Unity, was the most advanced vessel ever built by the combined knowledge of the Alliance species. The night before their departure, Elena stood at the observation deck of the Antarctic spaceport, looking up at the stars, many of which now had names and meanings that no human had known just 7 years earlier. Nervous? Asked a familiar voice. Elena turned to find Secretary General Okafor joining her at the window. Terrified, Elena admitted with a small smile. We're about to deliberately provoke the most powerful known force in the galaxy. A force built on fear and control, Okafor reminded her. Systems like that are strong until they aren't. Sometimes they collapse with surprising speed once people realize alternatives exist. And if they don't collapse? If they respond with full military force? Okafor's expression grew serious. Then humanity will face its greatest test. But we won't face it alone. That's the point of everything we've built these past years. We're stronger together than we ever could be apart. The next morning, the Unity and 3 other ships launched from Earth, using a complex series of maneuvers to slip through gaps in the Confederation blockade. By the time the blockading ships responded, the small fleet had engaged their advanced drives and vanished from detection range. Their first destination was Teller, a world whose leaders had secretly contacted the Alliance expressing interest in joining. As the Unity dropped out of faster-than-light travel near Teller, however, they found a Confederation battlecruiser already in orbit. They anticipated us, Thierry said from her station on the bridge. They must have intercepted Teller's communications. The Confederation ship immediately began targeting procedures, but before it could fire, 3 smaller ships appeared from Teller's surface and positioned themselves protectively around the Unity. Alliance vessel, this is Captain Nem of the Teller Defense Force, came a transmission. We've been expecting you. The Confederation attempted to seize control of our planetary government 2 days ago, but they underestimated our resolve. Teller has formally declared independence and requests immediate membership in your alliance. It was the first of many surprises. At each world they visited, the Unity's crew found situations evolving faster than anyone had predicted. Some planets were in open revolt against Confederation authority. Others were engaged in tense standoffs. A few remained loyal to the High Council, but allowed the Alliance ships to depart peacefully, unwilling to fire the first shots in what increasingly looked like an impending galactic conflict. 3 months into their mission, the Unity received an urgent transmission from Earth. Elena gathered the crew to hear the message from Admiral Chen. The Confederation blockade has withdrawn from Earth orbit, Chen reported, his image flickering slightly over the vast distance. Their forces are being redeployed to deal with uprisings on at least 12 member worlds. The High Council has issued a formal condemnation of Earth and the